Proverbs 31 is very popular in some circles, and probably much less so elsewhere. A Proverbs 31 woman is the kind of woman that all women want to be, says one popular website. She is noble, capable, dignified, trustworthy, hardworking, creative, frugal, intelligent, talented, strong, skillful, vigorous, profitable, compassionate, respected, joyful, wise, faithful, observant, God-fearing, and praised by her family and friends. She provides for her family, is diligent in her work, and reaps rewards and blessings from her endeavors. The author of Proverbs 31 praises her highly and describes how her husband and children feel provided for, secure, and confident because of her presence. She is known in the city for being a woman of great character, and people want to go to her when they need help. Unquote. There are some women, no doubt, who also find the idea of the Proverbs 31 woman very intimidating. It sets a high bar for behavior, skills, and virtue. She is seen as perfect, excelling in every area of life, something which is very hard for anyone to do. Therefore, comparing yourself to her can lead to feelings of failure and inadequacy, and of course, the passage itself is open to misuse and misinterpretation. Let's face it, in today's more modern world, it seems a little out of touch with reality. Nevertheless, it still has something to offer all of us. And I do mean all of us, men included. After all, the virtues that it extols are not exclusive to women alone, and they can easily be applied to men as well. For instance, Proverbs 31:12 says, "She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life." Could we not say likewise that every husband of every wife should aspire to bring her good and not harm all the days of his life? That is, in essence, what we have already promised to do. She sets about her work vigorously, so we read, her arms are strong for her tasks. She sees that her trading is profitable, and her lamp does not go out at night. Likewise, most men want to see themselves as capable and hardworking, and they fear the day when they might not be able to provide for their family. After all, that is their role. Our hopes and fears, and even our failures, are not so very different from each other, and neither are our aspirations. The problem arises whenever we try to clobber each other with our own personal expectations of how they should behave, instead of acknowledging that we do not always behave as we should, in order to live up to our own expectations of ourselves. In that sense, there is value here, mostly for our own use and application, and not for judging others. In general, the virtues espoused here are trustworthiness, diligence, generosity, wisdom, and above all else, the fear of the Lord. The last one probably needs some explanation. It might better have been expressed as love of the Lord, because it is not really about being afraid of God. It is about knowing God and relating to God with reverence and some understanding that God is God and we are not. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, so Proverbs says elsewhere, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. Do you know how having a friend can change your perception of yourself and what is important to you? Well, knowing God is like that. When God is no longer a stranger, then fear becomes love and gratitude for having such a friend. And you want to become a different person because God knows you and sees you as a different person. Because of such a friend, our priorities change and life becomes better, even if our circumstances don't. Proverbs 31:30 says, "Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. So is the man who fears the Lord." Although we, of course, just get better looking every day. Just kidding. There's a bit of a double standard out there when it comes to aging. But the truth is that the beauty that God desires to see in us is all internal rather than external. And that, I think, is the real meaning of that verse. Do you want to know where Proverbs 31, 10 through 31 actually came from? We have some clues. For one thing, it is a poem, an acrostic poem, in which each sentence begins with a different letter of the Hebrew alphabet. That doesn't come across in the translation we have, of course. Legend attaches it to the queen rather than King Lemuel, who wanted to give advice to her son regarding a suitable woman for him to marry. Even she began by saying, "A wife of noble character who can find? She is worth far more than rubies." In other words, good luck finding her. In the history of the world, has any woman ever been good enough for a mother's son? This was the ideal woman that the queen thought her son should marry. These are the characteristics that she wanted for a daughter-in-law. Whether he actually found such a woman or married such an ideal woman is not known, and it is beyond the scope of the poem. Its appeal today endures not because it is a job description, but because it speaks to the challenges of life and calls us to rise and become more than we think we can be. That is the role of the archetype, to make us want to become someone who is better than we are. She walks in beauty like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes. Lord Byron, not the Bible. All that is best, that is what an archetype provides us as an example to follow. Jesus is also an archetype, although of course he is much more than that. The woman described in Proverbs 31, as one commentator has said, is much more like a housewife on steroids. She is entrepreneurial and by no means limited to a domestic sphere. The ancient Israelites did not divide the world in that way in any case. She is industrious and generous. She is a craftswoman and a wise woman. She is caring, considerate, and attentive to the needs of others. Above all, she is a God-fearer. The wording in Proverbs even suggests that she is also a warrior woman, or at least a woman of warrior strength. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. The queen did not someone who was less wise or meek or demure for her son. She wanted a woman who was every bit his equal in every way. Interpreting that ideal for today requires letting go of some stereotypes that we have created out of this passage in the past. Today's Proverb 31 woman is ideally strong, capable, and influential, managing her household and engaging in business effectively. She is equal to, not less than, her husband in every way, and fully involved in everything. Rather than being defined or limited to some gender-specific role, she is a force of nature unto herself, and one to be reckoned with. Add to this, then, those virtues that I mentioned before. She is reliable, she works hard and is industrious, managing everything she does efficiently. She is kind and helps the poor and needy. She speaks with wisdom and teaches kindness, and above all else she fears the Lord. And that is the firm foundation of all of her virtues. In what way, then, should men not aspire to at least try and become more like that? If it is true that a woman's work is never done, then it is probably because we men have done far less than we should to try and become their equal. God wants both men and women to become strong in ways that matter to God, and I believe that we can help each other to do so. Be safe, and God bless you.